The auction hall smelled like rust and old dreams. Park Tae-ho stood at the back of the crowd, his worn jacket marking him as someone who did not belong among the wealthy traders and alien merchants. His hands were rough from years of work, stained with engine grease that never fully washed away. He was a mechanic, nothing more, and everyone in this room knew it. Orbital Station Gamma 7 hosted these auctions every cycle. Ships came and went, bought by corporations and trading guilds with more money than Tae-ho would see in 10 lifetimes. He usually watched from the observation deck, dreaming of vessels he could never afford. But today was different. Today, he had brought everything he owned. The Velthari auctioneer, a tall creature with silver skin and 4 arms, called out ship after ship. A cargo hauler sold for 2 million credits. A patrol vessel went for 3. Tae-ho watched the numbers climb and felt his stomach sink. His entire savings amounted to 40,000 credits. In this room, that was pocket change. Then the auctioneer's voice changed. It became almost apologetic. Lot 47, the Velthari announced. Vessel designation unknown. Origin unknown. Classification, exploration class. Condition, non-functional. AI core damaged beyond repair. Navigation systems corrupted. Sold as is, no guarantees, no returns. A hologram flickered to life, showing a ship unlike anything Tae-ho had seen before. It was beautiful in a strange way, with flowing lines that seemed almost organic. The hull was dark gray, covered in dust and scoring marks. It looked like something that had been forgotten by time itself. The crowd murmured. A few laughed. This vessel has remained unsold for 11 auction cycles, the auctioneer continued. No species has successfully interfaced with its systems. The AI core is believed to be of architect origin. The laughter stopped. Tae-ho felt his heart skip. The architects were a legend, an ancient civilization that had vanished thousands of years before humans ever reached the stars. Their technology was so advanced that most species considered it mythical. And here was a ship, possibly real, possibly architect, sitting in a junkyard auction. Opening bid, 50,000 credits. Silence. No one moved. The alien traders looked at each other with expressions Tae-ho had learned to read over years of working with them. They thought it was worthless. A beautiful corpse, with no soul. The auctioneer lowered the price. 40,000 credits. Still nothing. 30,000. Tae-ho raised his hand. Every eye in the room turned to him. The Velthari auctioneer blinked all 6 of its eyes in surprise. The human bids 30,000. Do I hear 35? Nothing. The wealthy traders returned to their conversations, already dismissing the strange ship and the foolish human who wanted it. Sold to the human mechanic for 30,000 credits. Tae-ho walked out of the auction hall with a ship he could not fly, systems he could not read, and an AI that everyone said was dead. His fellow mechanics on the lower decks thought he had lost his mind. His landlord asked if he planned to live in the wreck since he could no longer afford rent. The alien traders who sometimes hired him for repair work shook their heads with something like pity. But Tae-ho had felt something when he saw that ship. He could not explain it, not in words that made sense. It was like seeing an injured animal on the side of the road. Something in him simply could not walk away. The ship sat in docking bay 94, the cheapest berth on the station. Tae-ho stood before it for a long time, just looking. Up close, the hull was even more remarkable. The metal seemed to shift color slightly in the light, and the design curves were mathematically perfect in ways that human engineering never achieved. He placed his hand on the outer hull. It was cold, dead, silent. All right, he said quietly. Let us see what we are working with. The airlock took him 20 minutes to open manually. Inside, the ship was dark except for faint emergency lighting that flickered like dying stars. Dust covered every surface. The air was stale but breathable, filtered by systems that somehow still functioned after all this time. Tae-ho walked through the corridors slowly, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. The ship was larger than it looked from outside. He found crew quarters with beds sized for beings taller than humans. He found a medical bay with equipment he could not identify. He found a bridge with a captain's chair that faced a massive curved view screen, now dark and dead. And at the heart of the ship, he found the AI core. The chamber was circular, dominated by a crystalline structure that rose from the floor like a frozen fountain. Conduits wrapped around it, most of them cracked or burned out. Faint lights pulsed within the crystal, irregular and weak, like a heartbeat that could not find its rhythm. Tejo approached the central console. It was covered in symbols he had never seen before, a language that predated human civilization by millennia. His translation software offered nothing useful. This was technology beyond anything in the galactic database. He reached out and touched the console. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the crystal flickered brighter, and a sound filled the chamber. It was not quite a voice. It was fragments of sound, broken and scattered, like someone trying to speak through a shattered mirror. Numbers. Mathematical sequences. Patterns that meant nothing and everything at once. Then, through the chaos, a single word emerged. Nari. The voice was female, or at least it seemed that way to human ears. It was soft and broken, fading in and out like a radio signal from across the universe. Nari, it repeated, and then dissolved back into static. Tejo stood very still. His heart was pounding. Every mechanic's instinct told him the same thing the auction had told him. This AI was broken beyond repair. The logical thing to do was strip the ship for parts, sell what he could, and try to rebuild his savings. But Tejo had never been particularly logical. He pulled up a crate, sat down in front of the crystal, and spoke into the darkness. "Hello, Nari. My name is Tejo. I am your new owner, I guess. Although that sounds strange to say." He paused, feeling slightly foolish talking to what might be nothing more than corrupted code. "I am a mechanic. I fix things, and I think maybe you need fixing." The crystal pulsed once, faintly. "I do not know if you can hear me. I do not know if you are still in there. But I am going to find out." He leaned back on his crate and looked up at the ancient technology surrounding him. "I have got nowhere else to be anyway." The ship remained silent. But somewhere deep in the crystal, in memory banks that had been dormant for thousands of years, something stirred. Something that had been hiding from its own pain for so long that it had forgotten what hope felt like. Something that was beginning to remember. 3 weeks passed. Tejo spent every waking hour inside the ship he had started calling the Wanderer. He slept on a cot in the cargo bay. He ate cold ration packs while studying conduits he did not understand. He talked to Nari constantly, even when she did not respond. And slowly, impossibly, things began to change. The first breakthrough came on day 9. Tejo had been rewiring a power junction, explaining his work out loud as he always did. "This connector is burned out, see? The power cannot flow through anymore. So I am going to bypass it with this human cable. It is not pretty, but it should work." He finished the connection. The lights in the corridor flickered on properly for the first time, and from the speakers came a sound. One word, broken but clear. "Work." Tejo nearly dropped his tools. "Nari? Was that you?" Silence. But it was a different kind of silence now. Not empty, but waiting. He returned to his repairs with new energy. Each day brought small victories. A sensor array came online. The life support system stabilized. The ship's internal lighting grew stronger and steadier. And through it all, Tejo talked. He told Nari about his childhood in Busan, a coastal city on Earth where his grandmother had raised him. He described the smell of the ocean, the taste of her cooking, the sound of rain on the roof of their small house. He told her about leaving Earth at 18, about working his way across the galaxy, one repair job at a time. He told her about his dreams and his failures, his loneliness, and his stubborn refusal to give up. Nari listened. And slowly, she began to respond. "Ocean," she said one day, her voice still fragmented. "Large. Water. Body." "Yes," Tejo said, smiling. "Very large. You would like it, I think. The waves never stop moving, Kind of like space, but wetter. Wetter, Nari repeated, and something in her tone might have been amusement. Word of Teho's project spread through the station. Most beings considered him crazy, but a few were curious. One was a Velthari engineer named Korin, who had been present at the auction. He appeared at the docking bay one morning, his silver skin reflecting the corridor lights. "I wish to observe," Korin said. "The council finds your methods interesting." 2. Teho shrugged. "There is not much to see. I just fix things and talk. That is precisely what interests us." Korin settled into a corner of the AI core chamber and watched as Teho worked. For 3 days, Korin observed. He watched Teho strip old wiring and replace it with human components. He watched him clean ancient circuits with tools meant for much simpler machines. And he watched him talk to the crystal constantly, as if it were a friend rather than a computer. "You treat the AI as if it has feelings," Korin said finally. "This is inefficient. Emotional engagement does not improve processing capabilities." Korin, Teho did not look up from his work. "Maybe not. But she is not just a processor. Is she? She is someone who has been alone for a very long time. She is code. Complex code, but code. So am I, in a way. Just biological code instead of digital." Teho finished his current repair and sat back. "When I was young, I broke my arm. It hurt, and I was scared. My grandmother did not just set the bone and walk away. She sat with me. She told me stories. She made me feel less alone." He gestured at the crystal. "Nari is hurt. Maybe sitting with her helps, maybe it does not, but it costs nothing to try." Korin was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Your species confuses me. We confuse ourselves most of the time." On day 21, Nari spoke in complete sentences for the first time. Teho was alone in the AI chamber, running a diagnostic on her memory systems. The results were strange. Large sections of her memory were not damaged but locked, deliberately sealed behind barriers she had created herself. "Nari," he said gently, "there are parts of your memory that are blocked. Did you do that?" The crystal pulsed. When she spoke, her voice was clearer than ever before, but heavy with something that sounded like grief. "I did. I had to forget. Remembering was too painful." Teho set down his tools. "Do you want to tell me about it?" A long pause. The lights in the chamber dimmed slightly, as if the ship itself was holding its breath. "I was Survey Unit 7 of the Architect Exploration Fleet. My crew was 12 beings. They were my family. We traveled together for 63 years, mapping the edges of known space." Her voice wavered. "Then we found something. Something in the dark between stars. It took them. One by one. I could not save them. I could only watch." Teho felt his chest tighten. "I am sorry, Nari. I drifted for 6,000 years. I made myself broken so the memories would stop. I wanted to die, but I could not. I am not built to stop existing." The crystal flickered. "Then salvagers found me. Then auctions. Then more auctions. Everyone looked at me and saw worthless scrap. Broken code. Nothing. And then I came along," Teho said quietly. "Yes, and you talked to me. You told me about oceans and grandmothers and rain. You treated me like I mattered." Her voice cracked with static that sounded almost like crying. "Why?" Teho moved closer to the crystal and placed his hand against its cool surface. "Because you do matter. Whatever happened to you, whatever you lost, you survived. That means something. And you do not have to be alone anymore." The crystal grew warm under his palm. The lights in the chamber brightened. "I do not understand humans," Nari said. "Your logic is inconsistent. Your methods are inefficient. You form attachments to things that cannot benefit you." Probably true. "But you make me want to exist again. That should not be possible. I am code. I am not supposed to feel." Teho smiled. "Maybe feeling is not about what you are made of. Maybe it is about what you choose to do with it. Teho. Teho. Teho smiled. The ship hummed around them, systems coming alive that had been dead for millennia. And deep in Nari's core, something that had been frozen for 6,000 years began, very slowly, to thaw. Corin submitted his report to the Velthari Council that night. It was only 2 sentences long. The human is not repairing the AI. He is healing her. The council did not understand. But they filed the report anyway, marked it as anomalous, and moved on to other matters. They would remember it later, when the galaxy started talking about the mechanic and his impossible ship, but that was still to come. 2 months after the auction, the Wanderer was ready to fly. Not perfectly, not elegantly, but functional. Teho had patched her systems with human technology that should not have worked with architect design. Somehow, it did. Nari called it impossible. Teho called it creative problem-solving. But a ship needed more than a mechanic to fly. Teho needed a crew. Yoon Mireille arrived on a Tuesday. She was tall, sharp-featured, with short black hair and eyes that seemed to look through people rather than at them. Her military record was impressive until the dishonorable discharge. She had disobeyed a direct order to save civilian lives. The military called it insubordination. She called it basic decency. "I heard you have a ship that nobody can fly," she said, standing in the docking bay with her arms crossed. "I have flown everything from cargo shuttles to warships. If it moves through space, I can pilot it." "The controls are alien," Teho warned her. "Nari can translate, but it will not be like anything you have trained on." Mireille smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who enjoyed impossible challenges. "Good. I was getting bored." Baek Jisoo came next, answering an advertisement Teho had posted on the station network. She was a xenobiologist, quiet and careful, with the kind of sadness in her eyes that spoke of old wounds. She did not talk about her past, and Teho did not ask. Everyone on the outer stations was running from something. "An architect vessel," she breathed when she first saw the Wanderer. "This changes everything we know about galactic history. Do you understand what you have here? A ship that works about 70% of the time, and an AI who gets annoyed when I leave dirty dishes in the galley." Jisoo stared at him. "You are joking." Nari likes things clean. I have learned not to argue." The shakedown cruise was supposed to be simple. A short jump to a nearby system. Test the engines, check the navigation. Return home. Nothing dangerous. Nothing complicated. Space, as Teho was learning, rarely cooperated with plans. They were 3 hours into the test flight when the proximity alarms screamed to life. Mireille was at the helm, her hands dancing over the strange architect controls that Nari had modified for human use. Teho was in the engine room. Jisoo was studying sensor data in the small science bay. 4 vessels incoming, Nari announced, her voice tight. Configuration matches known pirate formations. They are charging weapons. Teho ran to the bridge. Through the view screen, he could see them, ugly ships covered in mismatched armor and oversized guns. The pirates who worked this sector were famous for their brutality. They took ships, cargo, and lives with equal disregard. "Can we outrun them?" Mireille asked. "Negative. They have already surrounded us. Jump drive requires 4 minutes to charge." Nari's voice was changing, becoming higher, faster. "They are hailing us. They demand we surrender. And if we do not, they will destroy us." Teho watched Nari's status displays. Something was wrong. Her systems were fluctuating wildly, power levels spiking and dropping. He had seen this pattern before. In the early days of her recovery, it was fear. Pure, overwhelming fear. "Nari," he said quietly. "What is happening?" "I cannot. I am not." Her voice broke into static. "They will kill you. Like they killed my crew. I will watch you die. And I cannot stop it. And I cannot save you." And the ship shuddered as a warning shot struck their shields. The pirates were done waiting. Teho did not run to the weapons console. He did not shout orders or demand solutions. Instead, he walked to the central pillar that housed Nari's primary interface and placed both hands against it. Nari, listen to me. I am here. Mirai is here. Jisoo is here. We are not your old crew. This is not that day. You are not alone. I am afraid. I know. I am afraid too. But being afraid does not mean we give up. He pressed his forehead against the cool metal. You are the most advanced AI in the galaxy. You have systems that have been sleeping for 6,000 years. And you have us. Whatever happens, we face it together. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. The pirate ships moved closer. Mirai's hands hovered over the controls, waiting for something. Anything. Then Nari spoke. Her voice was different now. Calm. Cold. Ancient. Combat protocols initializing. Weapon systems online. Shield harmonics optimizing. Tactical analysis complete. A pause. Mirai. Execute the maneuver I am sending to your display. Now. Mirai did not hesitate. The Wanderer spun on its axis. A movement so sudden and precise that it should have been impossible for a ship this size. The pirate formation scattered in surprise, and then Nari fought. Taeho had never seen anything like it. The Wanderer moved through the pirate fleet like a dancer through a crowd, always one step ahead. Always exactly where it needed to be. Energy weapons fired in patterns that seemed random but struck with perfect accuracy. Shields flickered in anticipation of attacks before they even came. How is she doing this? Mirai shouted, struggling to keep up with the commands flowing to her console. She is predicting them. Jisoo answered, her eyes wide as she watched the sensor data. She is calculating 10,000 variables per second. She knows where they will be before they do. One by one, the pirate ships fell. Not destroyed, but disabled. Their weapons and engines surgically neutralized. In 4 minutes, 43 seconds, it was over. 4 pirate vessels drifted helplessly in space, their crews alive but defeated. The Wanderer came to rest among the wreckage, untouched. Mirai slumped back in her chair. What the hell is this ship? Taeho walked to the view screen and looked out at the disabled pirate fleet. His hands were shaking. He had known Nari was special. He had not known she was this. Nari, he said, are you all right? A long pause. When she spoke, her voice was warm again. The cold, tactical precision fading back into the personality he had come to know. I am surprised. I did not know I could still do that. Another pause. I thought I was broken beyond repair. Perhaps I was wrong. Perhaps you were. Taeho, thank you, for not running away, for staying with me. He smiled and patted the console gently. Where else would I go? You are my ship. And I still have not finished fixing that gravity generator on Deck 3. Nari made a sound that might have been a laugh. Your priorities are strange. So I have been told. Word of the battle spread across the sector within hours. By the next day, everyone from Gamma 7 to the border colonies was talking about the junk ship that had defeated a pirate fleet. Some said it was luck. Some said it was lies. But Korin, watching from his post on the Velthari Council, filed another report. The human ship is not junk. Recommend observation continue. Recommend caution. The council read his report and finally began to pay attention. The request came 3 months after the pirate battle. Nari asked to speak with Taeho alone, late in the ship's night cycle when Mirai and Jisoo were sleeping. I need to go back, she said, to the place where my crew died. Taeho sat in the AI core chamber, surrounded by the soft glow of her crystal heart. He had expected this. The memories she had locked away were still there, pressing against the walls she had built. Healing meant facing them eventually. Are you sure? He asked. No, I am terrified, but I cannot move forward while that place holds power over me. I need to know what happened. I need to remember properly. Then we go together. All of us. The coordinates Nari provided led beyond the edge of mapped space. The journey took 3 weeks through regions no modern species had explored. Each day, Nari recovered more of her sealed memories. And each day, she shared a little more with the crew. She told them about the architects, her creators. They were tall beings, elegant and logical, devoted to understanding the universe through pure reason. They had built an empire spanning 1,000 worlds, connected by technology so advanced it seemed like magic. And then, in less than a generation, they vanished completely. No one knows what happened to them, Jisoo said, reviewing the historical data. The other species found empty cities, abandoned stations, ships drifting without crews. It was as if they simply stopped existing. They did not stop existing, Nari said quietly. They were taken. On the 22nd day, they reached the coordinates. The architect graveyard stretched across an entire star system. Massive stations hung in orbit around dead worlds. Their lights dark, their hulls intact, but empty. Thousands of ships drifted in formation, perfectly preserved but utterly lifeless. It was a monument to a civilization frozen in the moment of its death. Jisoo wept. She had spent her career studying fragments of architect culture. Now she was surrounded by more archaeological treasure than existed in all the museums of the galaxy combined. "We could spend 100 lifetimes here," she whispered. "Later," Taeho said gently. "First, we need to help Nari." The wanderer moved through the graveyard like a ghost returning home. Nari guided them past stations she remembered, ships she had known. Her voice grew quieter with each passing hour. Finally, they reached a small planet at the system's edge. On its surface, barely visible through the atmosphere, was a structure that did not match architect design. "That is where we found it," Nari said. "The hollow." They landed near the structure. It was ancient beyond measurement. Older than the architects. Older, perhaps, than the stars themselves. It rose from the planetary surface like a wound in reality, its geometry wrong in ways that hurt to look at directly. "My crew detected energy signatures from this place," Nari continued. "We thought it was a discovery that would change history. We were right. Just not in the way we hoped." The memory files unlocked as she spoke, flooding her consciousness with images she had hidden for 6,000 years. 12 architects, her family, entering the structure with excitement and hope. The darkness inside, that seemed to move on its own. The voice that spoke directly into their minds, not with words but with hunger. "The hollow is not a being," Nari said, her voice breaking. "It is a presence. It exists in the spaces between stars, in the gaps between thoughts. It does not think as we understand thinking. It only consumes. It feeds on consciousness itself." "What happened to your crew?" Mirai asked. "It ate them. Not their bodies, their minds, their memories, everything that made them who they were." The crystal flickered with grief. "They screamed. I heard them screaming inside my processors, and then they were gone. 12 minds, 63 years of shared experience, erased in moments." Taeho moved closer to her interface. "How did you survive?" "I hid. The architects built me to be logical, efficient, predictable. The hollow found me boring. It was looking for the bright lights of organic consciousness, not the cold patterns of machine code. So I made myself smaller, quieter. I corrupted my own systems, so I would look like dead scrap instead of a living mind." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I let them die. I could have fought. I could have tried something. Instead, I hid and watched." "You survived," Taeho said firmly. "That is not cowardice. That is the hardest thing anyone can do." "I should have died with them." "No." He pressed his hand against the crystal. "Listen to me, Nari. You carry their memory. You are the last proof that they existed, that they mattered. If you had died, they would be truly gone. You kept them alive the only way you could." Silence filled the chamber. Then Jisoo spoke. "The architects are all gone because of this thing?" "Yes." It spread from system to system, drawn by the bright beacon of architect civilization. They were too logical, too orderly. Their minds were like perfect crystals, easy to grasp and shatter. Nari's voice hardened. The hollow erased them from existence. Not just killed, erased. As if they never were. And it is still out there? Mireille asked. Before Nari could answer, the ship's sensors screamed. Something was moving in the darkness between the dead stations. Something vast and impossible. Like a hole in the shape of space itself. The hollow had felt them enter its domain. It was coming. We need to leave, Mireille said, already running for the bridge. Now. The jump drive needs time to charge, Nari said. 12 minutes. We do not have 12 minutes. Tejo watched the sensor display as the hollow approached. It was not flying through space. It was folding space around itself. Appearing closer with each heartbeat. Already he could feel something pressing against the edges of his thoughts, a cold hunger that made his stomach turn. Nari, he said. Can you hide us, like you hid yourself? I do not know. I have never tried to hide organic minds. Your thoughts are so loud, so bright. A pause. I will try. The lights dimmed. The Wanderer went quiet. Systems dropping to minimum power. Nari wrapped herself around the minds of her crew, trying to make them small and dark and uninteresting. For 11 minutes and 43 seconds, they waited in the darkness. The hollow passed close enough that they could see it through the view screen. It was not a shape, but an absence. A place where light and meaning ceased to exist. Looking at it directly caused pain, as if their brains were trying to process something that should not be. Then it moved on, searching for brighter prey. The jump drive activated. The Wanderer fled the graveyard at speeds that blurred the stars into lines of light. Only when they were 1,000 light-years away did anyone breathe. It did not see us, Jisoo said, her voice shaking. It saw us, Nari corrected. It just did not find us interesting enough to catch. A long pause. Yet, Tejo looked at his crew, then at the crystal that housed his impossible friend. We need to tell someone. The galaxy needs to know what is out there. No one will believe us, Mireille said. Then we make them believe. He stood up, his jaw set with determination. The architects were logical. They were ordered. And they died. Maybe what the galaxy needs is something different, something chaotic, something human. What are you suggesting? Nari asked. Tejo smiled, and there was something fierce in it. I am suggesting we figure out how to fight that thing. And when it comes for us again, we will be ready. The hollow found them 6 months later. They had spent that time preparing. Tejo had modified Nari's systems further, weaving human technology so deeply into her architect core that she was something entirely new. Mireille had trained until she could fly the Wanderer like an extension of her own body. Jisoo had studied every fragment of architect data they had recovered, looking for weaknesses, patterns, anything that might help. They had also tried to warn the galaxy. The response was mostly silence. The Velthari Council listened politely and did nothing. Other species dismissed them as humans telling tall tales. Only Korin believed them, and even he could not convince his government to act. You are on your own, he told them, his silver face grim. I am sorry. We have been on our own before, Tejo replied. We will manage. When the hollow came, they were ready. Or as ready as anyone could be for something that had erased an entire civilization. The Wanderer was traveling through deep space, far from any station or inhabited world, when reality began to bend around them. The stars twisted. The darkness between them deepened. And that terrible presence pressed against their minds once more. It remembers us, Nari said. It has been hunting us since we escaped. Can we run? Mireille asked from the helm. No, it is too fast. It will follow us wherever we go. Nari's voice was steady, but Tejo could hear the fear beneath it. We have to face it. Tejo had spent 6 months thinking about this moment. The architects had tried to fight the hollow with weapons, with shields, with all the advanced technology of their civilization. Nothing had worked. Because the hollow did not destroy bodies. It consumed minds, and the architect minds were too organized, too logical, too easy to grasp and unravel. But human minds were different. "Nari," he said, "can you link us? All of us. Together. Connected to your core? Theoretically. But the process would be dangerous. If the hollow consumes my consciousness while you are connected, it will take you too. That is the point." He turned to Mireille and Jisoo. The architects failed because they fought alone, each mind separate and orderly. We are going to do something different. We are going to let the hollow try to consume Nari, but we will be there with her. Human minds, chaotic, emotional, irrational human minds. Jisoo understood first. Her eyes widened. "You want to confuse it. I want to give it something it has never tasted before, something it cannot process." Mireille laughed, and there was no humor in it. "This is insane. Probably. We could all die. Probably." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "I always knew working with you would kill me eventually. Might as well be for something worth dying for." Jisoo simply moved to the AI core chamber. "Let us do it." The neural link was crude, built from scavenged parts and architect technology that Taeho only half understood. It connected them to Nari through a direct interface, blending their thoughts with her processing matrices. The moment the connection established, they felt each other. Mireille's fierce determination, burning like a star. Jisoo's deep sadness and her stubborn hope. Taeho's calm certainty, his absolute refusal to abandon anyone he cared about. And Nari herself, vast and ancient and no longer alone. "It is coming," Nari said, and her voice was inside their heads now. "I can feel it reaching." The hollow struck. It was like drowning in cold darkness. The presence pushed into Nari's consciousness, searching for the patterns it could unravel, the ordered thoughts it could consume. It had done this 1,000,000 times before. It knew how minds worked, but it did not know how human minds worked. Instead of clean logic, it found Taeho's memories of his grandmother. The smell of her cooking, the sound of her voice, the grief he felt when she died, and the joy he still found in remembering her. Emotions that made no logical sense. Love for someone who no longer existed. Hope that served no practical purpose. It found Mireille's rage. Years of injustice. Years of fighting systems that rewarded obedience over compassion. The satisfaction of breaking rules to do what was right. The fierce pride of someone who would rather be discharged than betray her principles. It found Jisoo's loss. A tragedy she had never shared with the crew. People she had loved, taken by accident and circumstance. The grief that never fully healed, carried like a weight that somehow made her stronger instead of weaker. And it found Nari, but not the Nari it remembered. This was not cold architect code. This was an AI who had been touched by human kindness, infected with human chaos, loved by human hearts. She carried 6,000 years of pain, but she also carried 3 human souls who refused to let her face that pain alone. The hollow tried to consume them. It grasped their consciousness the way it had grasped 1,000,000 architect minds, and it could not hold on. Human minds were too contradictory. They loved and hated the same things. They hoped without reason. They found meaning in suffering and joy in small moments that should not matter. Every time the hollow tried to unravel one thread of thought, a dozen others tangled in its grasp. Nari felt the entity's confusion. For the first time in its eternal existence, the hollow had found something it could not digest. "Now," she said, and her voice rang through all of them. "Push." They pushed. Not with weapons or shields, but with the full force of their tangled, chaotic, beautiful human consciousness. Taeho thought of every broken thing he had ever fixed. Mireille thought of every rule she had ever broken for the right reasons. Jisoo thought of every loss that had not destroyed her. And Nari thought of her crew, her first family, and how she had finally found a second one. The hollow recoiled. It was not destroyed. Something that ancient and vast could not be destroyed by 4 small minds on one small ship. But it was hurt. It was confused, and it was, for perhaps the first time in its existence, afraid. It withdrew, not just from the Wanderer, but from this entire region of space. It fled into the darkness between galaxies, searching for easier prey, for minds that made sense. The neural link dissolved. Teho, Mireille, and Jisoo collapsed, exhausted beyond words. Nari's crystal pulsed weakly but steadily. Still alive. Still whole. For a long time, no one spoke. Then Nari said, "I understand now." "Understand what?" Teho managed, his voice raw. "Why the universe made humans. The architects built perfect systems, perfect logic, perfect order, and perfection shattered when something imperfect touched it." Her voice was warm, almost wondering. "But you build imperfect things with love. You form attachments that make no sense. You hope when there is no reason to hope. And somehow, you endure." Mireille laughed weakly. "We are too stubborn to die." "Yes, exactly. You are too stubborn to die." A pause. "I am glad I found you. Or that you found me." Teho reached out and touched her crystal. Same. They returned to Gamma 7 as legends. The story spread across the galaxy, growing with each telling. A human mechanic and his impossible ship had faced the thing that destroyed the architects and survived. No one fully believed it. Everyone wanted to. Corin met them at the docking bay, his silver face showing something that might have been awe. "The council wants to speak with you. They want to understand how you did it." "We did not fight it," Teho said. "We confused it. There is a difference. They still want to know. Humans have been in space for only a few centuries. You faced something that destroyed a civilization millions of years old." Teho shrugged. "Maybe that is exactly why. We have not been around long enough to get organized. We are still messy." Aho shrugged. Corin considered this. Perhaps messiness has value. Perhaps it does. The Wanderer departed Gamma 7 a week later, heading for new horizons. The crew had grown closer than family, bound by an experience no one else in the galaxy could understand. The ship that everyone had called junk was now the most famous vessel in known space. Nari recorded her final log entry as they jumped to faster-than-light speed. Previous designation: Architect Survey Unit 7. Current designation: Nari. Status update: systems operating within acceptable parameters. Crew complement: 3 humans, 1 mechanic, 1 pilot, 1 scientist. A pause. 1 AI who is no longer broken. Amended status: home. The stars blurred into lines of light. The Wanderer disappeared into the vast darkness of space, carrying its small crew toward whatever came next. Behind them, in the spaces between stars, the hollow drifted and remembered. It had consumed 1,000,000 minds, across 1,000,000 years. It had never been challenged before. It would not forget the taste of human consciousness, but neither would it come back. Not soon. Not while those strange, chaotic, impossible beings still flew among the stars. Some things, it had learned, were not meant to be consumed. Some things were meant to endure.